Good evening and welcome to another edition of the Big High School Sports Show on 98.9 WXCO, online at WXCO.FM, mobile devices and Alexa by searching WXCO, and on the Civic Media app. You can also join us on YouTube. Go to youtube.com and the 98.9 WXCO channel on YouTube to watch and listen to the show as well. And if you are on YouTube, you would be able to see it's just me in the studio. Unfortunately, Jason Foster, my co-host, a family emergency or issue has come up, and unfortunately, he will not be able to be with us tonight. So hopefully everything will be A-OK with Coach Foster and his family, and he'll be back with us coming up next week. I do have on the other side of the glass my in-studio engineer and producer, Ian Welsh. Ian, good evening.
Good evening, Chet.
Are you going to jump in and add your perspective on all these high school football games? You've been following very closely, I'm sure, right?
I can try to add a little perspective, but it won't be a lot.
No, so it's A-OK. But tonight we do have some guests. In fact, we have 3 guests coming in, as we will be joined coming up. We're actually flipping. Normally we have the coach guests in the first hour and the student-athlete guests in the second hour. Well, tonight it's going to be our student-athlete guests coming up here in hour number 1. We'll be joined by a pair of Newman Catholic High School Cardinals as Triston Fisher and also Griffin Puent, pair of Cardinal seniors, will be with us coming up at the bottom of this hour at 6:30. So we'll talk to Triston Fisher and Griffin Puent coming up at 6:30. And then at 7:06, it will be Jason Rick, the head football coach of Wittenberg-Burnhamwood High School. He'll be our coach guest for this week as well. So that's coming up. Our guests during the course of the program, Triston Fisher and Griffin Puent from Newman at 6:30, and Jason Rick from Wittenberg-Burnhamwood at 7:06. But let's jump into the recap of last week. Yep, we are through 7 weeks of the football regular season. What that means is that in 11-player football, we have 2 more games remaining before the playoffs start. And in 8-player football, there is only 1 more game. This is the final week of the regular season, and the playoffs for 8-player will begin next week. Let's start off with the Wisconsin Valley Conference, a game that I had last Friday night, right here on 98.9 WXCO. Saw the Marshfield Tigers earn a big win for their number 1 conference championship hopes and also playoff hopes as Marshfield defeated Wausau West by a score of 40-22. With the victory, Marshfield improves to 3-4 overall, 3-1 in the Wisconsin Valley Conference. The Warriors 4-3 overall, 3-2 in the WVC. This game was very even for much of the first half. In fact, the game turned during a short period at the end of the second quarter and then the start of the third quarter. With under a minute to go in the first half, Wausau West had a 4th down situation at their own 42-yard line. But a bad snap went over the punter's head. Warriors recovered it, but it was recovered at the 15-yard line. So with 42 seconds left in the first half, Marshfield took over 1st and 10 at the Warrior 14, trying to snap a 7-7 tie. 3 plays later, they were able to score, made it 14-7 at the end of the first half. Then on the first series of the third quarter, the Warriors threw an interception that was returned for a touchdown, and the 2-point conversion was good. It was 22-7, and then the Warriors fumbled the football away. That turned into a Marshfield field goal. So 5 minutes into the third quarter, it was 25-7 Tigers with the advantage, and they were never threatened after that. Hayden Carlson had a big night on the ground for Marshfield, 174 yards on 19 carries, including 2 touchdowns. Cooper DePoit had a solid night rushing the football for Wausau West, 119 yards on 19 carries and a touchdown. So Marshfield, after a bit of a slow start, very tough non-conference schedule, now are in a tie for second place in the Wisconsin Valley Conference with their 3-1 mark with Stevens Point, just 1 game behind undefeated DC Everest. DC Everest is still undefeated in the conference, but they are still winless in non-conference because last week they played their conference crossover game with Chippewa Falls, and Chippewa Falls defeated DC Everest 35-14. So Everest now 4-3 overall, still 4-0 in the WVC. It's been a bit of a struggle this season for Chippewa Falls. They are 3-4 overall. They're 1-3 in the Big Rivers Conference. It was turnovers in this game. 4-0 edge in turnovers aided the Cardinals. Corbin Enzenroth, another 100-plus yard game for DCE. That's been a weekly occurrence for the Evergreens recently. Enzenroth had 30 attempts for 156 yards and a touchdown. Chippewa Falls ran the ball well as a team. They had no one runner that really jumped out, but they did run for 221 yards rushing as a squad. So DC Everest is still in very good shape when it comes to the conference race, but at the same time, they're hurting themselves in potential seeding for the upcoming playoffs. And the DC Everest Evergreens at 4-3 overall, it's not about winning a conference. It's about all the games that go into the computer that ultimately will decide where you are seated. And right now, this 4-3 overall mark will not help DCE. Stevens Point ended a 2-game losing streak. Stevens Point knocked off Eau Claire North by a score of 49-21 last week. 5-2 overall for Stevens Point, 3-1 in the WVC. Eau Claire North, 2-5 overall, 1-3 in the conference. And it was a massive offensive night for Stevens Point. They put up nearly 700 yards of total offense in the game. Quarterback Trent Breitbach hit on 20 of 26 passes, 375 yards and 3 touchdowns. Running back Tucker Phillips had 169 yards on 17 carries with 3 touchdowns. So Stevens Point, they had that tough loss against Wausau West 2 weeks ago. They lost to a very good Hudson team 3 weeks ago. But despite the fact they are a game behind DC Everest in the conference, seeing both teams play, it feels as though perhaps Stevens Point, with their pass game and their run game, the quarterback injury when it comes to DC Everest, Stevens Point might be in a very good spot going into their Wisconsin Valley Conference showdown at Gerke Field on Friday night. And then it was the battle of two teams looking for their first win of the campaign. Eau Claire Memorial hosted Wisconsin Rapids last Friday night. And in the end, it's Eau Claire Memorial earning that first win, defeating Wisconsin Rapids Lincoln by a score of 29-20. So Memorial now 1-6 overall, 1-3 in the Wisconsin Valley Conference. Wisconsin Rapids drops to 0-7 overall, 0-5 in the league. Aaron Gunlock completed 18 of 31 passes for 202 yards, 3 touchdowns for the Old Abes, added 64 yards on the ground for Memorial as well. So looking at the WVC standings after week number 7, you have DC Everest at 4-0. Stevens Point and Marshfield tied for second at 3-1. Wausau West is at 3-2. They are currently in 4th place in the conference standings. We have Eau Claire North and Eau Claire Memorial, both 1-3 in the conference. They are tied for 5th. And Wisconsin Rapids 0-5 in the conference, currently in 7th. Great Northern Conference, quite a battle at the top in the GNC. Mosinee stays hot. They defeated Rhinelander 41-14 last Friday night. So Mosinee maintains their hold on a share of first place in the Great Northern at 4-1. Mosinee now 5-2 overall. Rhinelander drops to 3-4 overall, and they are 2-3 in the Great Northern Conference. Treve Stoffel continues his outstanding play for Mosinee. 168 yards rushing on 12 carries, added 2 touchdowns as well. He was also 11 of 15 passing with 138 yards and a touchdown. So Mosinee, after that loss earlier in the campaign against Tomahawk, has really turned it around. Actually, I shouldn't say against Tomahawk. The loss earlier in the season came against Lakeland, but for Mosinee, it's been a real good roll recently, and they moved into a 3-way tie for first in the conference. Rhinelander right now is have to play for their playoff lives the next couple of weeks. They're 2-3 in the conference. We have seen in recent years teams that get to 3 conference wins do get in, but there's no guarantee about that. So Rhinelander, if they want a guarantee of being in the postseason, will need to win their final 2 games. Tomahawk is now 4-1 in the conference, 6-1 overall, still tied for first after winning in Medford last week. Tomahawk 24, Medford 14. Medford, the defending conference champions, now 2-3 in the conference, 2-5 overall. Jet Riley had 98 yards rushing, 59 yards passing for Tomahawk. Will Wojcik had a nice night for Medford. The sophomore had 17 carries, 127 yards, and a pair of touchdowns. So Tomahawk continues their outstanding season, best season on the gridiron for a long time for Tomahawk. And Medford, like Rhinelander, finds themselves in a precarious situation when it comes to the postseason, needing wins in the final 2 games to clinch outright a playoff berth, and still an opportunity. If they get to 3 conference wins, they could get in as well. Third team still atop the Great Northern Conference in that tie at the top is Merrill. Merrill, 4-game winning streak for the Blue Jays. They are now 5-2 overall, 4-1 in the conference after defeating Wausau East on Saturday 31-14 in a game that was heard live right here on 98.9 WXCO. Lumberjacks, 2-5 overall, 1-4 in the conference. It was a scoreless tie until very late in the first half. Merrill had the ball on their own 41-yard line, and then Cole Rudai threw up it looked like a bit of a prayer, but he got answered as cutting in was Keelan Allen, made the grab. It looked like it surprised the secondary of Wausau East. Allen was able then to break a tackle and go all the way to the house for that 59-yard touchdown reception, give Merrill a 7-0 lead at the half. Merrill would never trail after that. Kanan Yankee had 30 rushes for 173 yards and 2 touchdowns for Merrill. Wausau East got 117 yards rushing and a 76-yard touchdown run from Ian Stahl as well. And then Lakeland stays within 1 game of first place in the Great Northern Conference. They defeated Antigo on Friday 21-7. Lakeland now 5-2 in the league, 3-2 in the league. 5-2 overall, 3-2 in the league. Antigo 1-6 overall, 0-5 in the GNC. Lakeland started off very quickly. Tyson Redmond had a kickoff return for a touchdown for the Thunderbirds. Levi Benversi had 21 carries, 91 yards for Antigo. So Great Northern Conference, quite a battle heading into the final 2 weeks of the regular season. You have 3 teams at 3-1, Mosinee, Tomahawk, and Merrill. The 1 game back at 3-2 is Lakeland. Then at 2-3, it is Rhinelander and Medford. Wausau East is 1-4 in the GNC, and Antigo in the cellar at 0-5. CWC Large, also a very, very intriguing battle for the conference championship. Stratford, who started their season off with a pair of non-conference losses, now have won 5 straight in the CWC Large. They defeated Marathon last Friday night, 35-6. Brady Berg, 8 of 11 passing, 216 yards, 3 touchdowns, and his number 1 target was Colton Bright. Bright had just 3 grabs, but for 124 yards and 2 touchdowns for Stratford. So Stratford, again, after that bit of a slow start, they are playing some outstanding football, and they have put themselves in a position, again, for a conference championship. The team they're battling is Amherst. Amherst did not have it easy last week at Wyowega Fremont. Amherst stays perfect, 7-0, 5-0 in the conference, holding off Wyowega Fremont by a score of 27-21. Wyowega Fremont now 1-4 in the conference, 3-4 overall. Michael Gladowski ran for a touchdown, threw another, a 16-yard connection to Sully Perkins on a 4th and 11 to lift Amherst. Amherst never trailed in this game, but after Wyowega Fremont scored with 2:35 left in the 4th quarter to cut the deficit to 27-21, Wyowega Fremont then was able to recover an onside kick. They had the football in Amherst territory, but an interception would put the finishing touches on the W for Amherst. Carter Birdyshaw was 9 of 22 passing, 116 yards, a touchdown, and 2 picks for Wyowega Fremont. Wittenberg-Burnhamwood, they are now 4-3 overall, 3-2 in the CWC Large. They win in Colby last Friday, 52-33. Colby now 1-6 overall, 0-5 in the conference. Caden Yeager ran for 189 yards and 4 touchdowns on only 11 carries for Wittenberg-Burnhamwood. Luke Hanula led Colby with 179 yards rushing and a touchdown. We'll learn more about Wittenberg-Burnhamwood, their team, and their season coming up at 7:06. We will be joined by the head coach of the Wittenberg-Burnhamwood Chargers and find out again about an interesting season for Whitburn, because it's a team that lost their quarterback even before the first snap of the season, and they were had a couple of very tough losses in overtime this season, and we'll find out about this ebb and flow with Jason Rick, the Charger head coach, coming up at 7:06. Spencer Columbus earns an upset, a bit of an upset, as they went to Loyal Greenwood and beat Loyal Greenwood 26-16. Loyal Greenwood started off the season 4-0. They're now 4-3, 2-3 in the conference. Spencer Columbus has been playing some very good football, battling some of the top teams in the league. They're now 3-4 overall, and they're 2-3 in the conference. Spencer Columbus got 190 yards rushing on 32 attempts with 2 touchdowns from Jack Haper, while Caleb Hilgeman caught 3 passes for 121 yards and 2 touchdowns. Jake Lindner was 10 of 18 passing, 174 yards, 2 touchdowns for Loyal Greenwood, while Kane Tufar had 5 catches, 103 yards, and a score. So looking at the CWC Large, you got Stratford and Amherst leading the way at 5-0 in the conference. And then there is a gap as Wittenberg-Bournemouth is 3-2 in the conference in third place. Then a number of teams at 2-3. You got Marathon, Spencer Columbus, and Loyal Greenwood. All those teams 2-3 in the conference. Those teams all trying to earn a quick finish to the season and get a spot in the postseason playoffs. Then you have at 1-4 in the conference, Wyowega Fremont, and Colby is in the cellar in the CWC Large at 0-5. In the Merriwood CWC, Edgar continues to roll. Edgar still perfect, 7-0 overall, 5-0 in the conference. They roll past Iola Scandinavia on the Thunderbirds on home field, 55-0 last week. Iola Scandinavia 2-5 overall, 1-4 in the conference. Maverick Butt had 7 attempts for 124 yards and 4 touchdowns for Edgar. The Edgar defense allowed just 68 yards of total offense. Through 7 games this season, Edgar has allowed just 14 points for a 2 points per game defensive average. Auburndale and Abbotsford came in still right there in the conference race. In fact, Abbotsford going into the game last Friday was 4-0 in the conference, tied with Edgar for first place, but Auburndale roughed up Abbotsford 42-0 last week. Auburndale now 6-1 overall, 4-1 in the conference. Abbotsford 5-2 overall, 4-1 in the conference. The Eagles took charge early, led 35-0 at the half as Nathan Van Wy put up 224 yards rushing on the night on just 11 carries with 2 touchdowns. Chase Bowler had 9 rushes for 55 yards for Abbotsford. So big win for Auburndale. They are now tied with Abbotsford in the conference race. Pittsville beat Assumption by a score of 30-6. So Pittsville 2-5 overall, 2-3 in the league. Assumption 2-5 overall, 2-3 in the league. Dawson Luther ran the ball 18 times for 90 yards and 3 touchdowns for Pittsville. Riley Cornwell had 17 rushes, 135 yards, and a touchdown for the Assumption Royals. And Pacelli last week, they received a conference forfeit as Rosholt, of course, before the season even began, left 11-player football for 8-player football, but they were still part of the conference. So that meant that everybody that was scheduled to play Rosholt had to find either a makeup game or take a week off. And Pacelli decided, hey, they wanted to play. So they faced off against Aurora Catholic Central, a team from Northern Illinois. And Aurora Catholic Central defeated Pacelli by a score of 41-6. So Pacelli drops to 2-5 overall. They are 2-3 in the Merriwood CWC. Zane Phyllis had 90 yards rushing on 20 attempts to pace Pacelli. So that's the CWC Merriwood, and conference standings have Edgar at 5-0. Then a tie for second between Auburndale and Abbotsford at 4-1. And then a log jam at 2-3. You got Pittsville, Assumption, and Pacelli. And at 1-4 is Iola Scandinavia. In 8-player football, in a game that was heard on 98.9 WXCO on the Sports 2 stream last Friday night, it was homecoming for the Newman Catholic Cardinals. Newman defeated Port Edwards by a score of 48-6. Newman now 5-2 overall, 4-2 in the CWC 8. Port Edwards 1-7 overall, 1-5 in the CWC 8. Newman got some big nights from running back Eli Fight and quarterback Michael Fox. The freshman Fight ran the ball just 6 times, but gained an amazing 185 yards and scored 3 touchdowns. So some quick math, that means that is more than 30 yards an attempt for Eli Fight on the ground. And in addition, he had a 54-yard touchdown reception as well. Fox was very efficient throwing the football, hitting on 10 of 11 passes for 225 yards and 2 touchdowns for Newman. Also in the CW8, it was a big game at the top of the league. Marion Tigerton moved into solo first place in the conference with a 57-24 win over Tri-County. Marion Tigerton now 6-1 overall, 6-0 in the conference. Tri-County drops to 5-2 overall, 5-1 in the conference. Braylon Milkey had 188 yards on the ground with 4 touchdowns for Marion Tigerton. And also for Central Wisconsin in terms of 8-player football last week, Athens lost a high-scoring affair at Phillips by a score of 52-40. Athens falls to 5-2 on the season despite a big night rushing by Evan Pasale. Pasale, who was a guest here on this program a couple of weeks ago, had 204 yards on the ground on 35 carries with 4 touchdowns. So there's the recap. It's a lot easier doing the recap when Jason Foster is around, I'll tell you that much. But again, if you're wondering where Coach Foster is, he had a family issue that came up, so he's unable to be with us here tonight, but he'll be back next week. But we got through all the action. Did I do okay, Ian?
You did very good. Absolutely.
That's what we like to hear. So we will come up a little bit later on with our preview of week number 8. We'll give you a look at the schedule, some of the big games, lots of playoff possibilities out there, conference championship possibilities, a really big week number 8 coming up. As I said earlier, 2 weeks remaining in 11-player football, and in 8-player football, there is just 1 regular season game remaining. This is it. After Friday night's games, we will know who the 32 teams are in 8-player football's playoffs. And this year, it is different. This is the first year that, like the 7 divisions in 11-player football, that 8-player will have 32 playoff teams. And they will start their playoffs in week 9 while the 11-player teams are finishing up their regular season. And they do that because the 8-player championship game is always the Saturday before the 11-player championship games that are played in Madison. So we will look ahead to a week number 8 action later in the program. Again, coming up at 7:06 tonight, it will be our coach guest from Wittenberg-Burnhamwood High School, head coach Jason Rick. But coming up after we take a 2-minute break, we'll have our student-athlete guest for this week from Newman Catholic High School seniors Triston Fisher and Griffin Puent. Along tonight with Ian Welsh, I am Chad Holmes. It is the Big High School Sports Show on 98.9 WXCO. This week it's homecoming at Wausau West, and the Warriors football team will look for a gridiron victory over Eau Claire Memorial. Hear all the action live from the Cloverbelt Credit Union broadcast booth, starting with the pregame show at 6:35 p.m. and the opening kickoff at 7 on 98.9 WXCO, online at WXCO.FM, mobile devices and Alexa by searching WXCO and on the Civic Media app. Wausau West football on 98.9 WXCO is brought to you by Sun Printing, the Wausau West Athletic Department, Wisconsin Valley Flag Football, Featherstone Cabinetry, the Wausau West Gridiron Club, K5 Construction, Rocket Industrial, and the Cloverbelt Credit Union. It's Wausau West football against Eau Claire Memorial, Friday, live from the Cloverbelt Credit Union broadcast booth at Tom Field, starting with the pregame show at 6:35 and the opening kickoff at 7 on 98.9 WXCO, online at WXCO.FM, mobile devices and Alexa by searching WXCO and on the Civic Media app.
Transform any home with the finest craftsmanship in custom cabinetry for the kitchen, bathroom, or closet. At Featherstone Cabinetry and Design, they bring each client's vision to life from concept to completion through expert design and professional installation. Choose Featherstone Cabinetry and Design for all home upgrade needs, proudly serving customers from their locations in Rothschild and Minocqua. Visit www.featherstonecabinetry.com.
For more than 60 years, Sun Printing has been Central Wisconsin's printer of choice due to their commitment to quality, creative solutions, and dedicated service. Sun Printing's team offers you a wide spectrum of services. Whether you need vehicle graphics, offset, digital, large format, graphic designer mailing, they print everything under the sun. No project is too big or too small. So give Sun Printing a call at 845-4911 or visit them online at sunprinting.com.
And welcome back. It is the Big High School Sports Show on 98.9 WXCO, online at WXCO.FM, mobile devices, and Alexa by searching WXCO, and on the Civic Media app. Moving some microphones around here in the studio, I am Chad Holmes, along with Ian Walsh, our producer, as it's time now for our student-athlete guests. Again, this week, we have flipped them around because Coach Jason Rick of Wittenberg-Burnhamwood had said, well, I can't really make it at 6:30. Could you do it closer to 7? I said, absolutely. And thanks to our student-athlete guests, Triston Fisher and Griffin Puent, for moving the time up, and thanks for coming on over tonight, guys.
Thanks. Absolutely. Thanks for having us.
And Triston, get closer to that microphone. We got to make sure everybody can hear you out there. I guess we're going to start off by talking generally about your season and for both of you, because you were part of the team from a year ago as well. The last 2 years have not been easy, have they? Because both last year and this year, you've been having to fight a lot of injuries. What has it been like having the ebbs and the flows where there's been a lot of highs in terms of really good production, a lot of wins for your teams, but at the same time seeing your teammates go down and having to go through a lot of adversity? I guess, Triston, for you first, and then we'll go to Griffin. But Triston, I imagine the last 2 years have been a growing experience for everybody on the Newman Cardinals.
Absolutely. I mean, it hurts seeing our guys go down. I mean, it hurts going down yourself, but I think we've come a long way, and even with losing those guys, we're still a strong team.
And Griffin, it's even bigger for you because you've had blood go down. Your brother's not been in the lineup for a number of weeks, but the good news is he'll be back. But generally, the last couple of years, I mean, there's been a lot of adversity for you and your teammates. How have you been trying to handle that in terms of week to week and knowing that there have been so many challenges last couple of seasons?
Yeah, there's definitely been a lot of ups and downs, but just trusting in Coach and his game plan that he's going to put us in positions to succeed. And it's you got to have some young guys step up every once in a while, so seeing them do that is really good.
Also, one of the things that's been noticeable is that there's been a lot of movement for positions and for players because you have to do it. I'm going to ask both of you about your positions, the positions you've played, and where you are right now. But Triston, what positions have you been playing this year?
This year I started off at running back, and just the last game I got moved to tight end, and I'm loving it a lot. Get to block, get to get the ball, get to get the ball on handoffs, get to do a bit of everything. I'm loving it.
And Griffin, what about you?
This year I've been playing linebacker and receiver, but in years past I've played anything from quarterback to tight end to running back. So,
what is it like in these situations where, number one, I mean, for individuals moving around and having to be, I guess, ready to move around? Because for your guys, we've seen, I think the game against Marion, you were down to your fourth center. I mean, it was like it was getting really, really thin. Has it been a case where, no problem, whatever you need me to do? Has it been hard? Has it been something that you've almost put your arms around, the idea of doing whatever it takes to make sure that your team is successful?
Yeah, it's definitely hard getting moved around, but I guess just you got to know what you're doing kind of at every single position, and understanding the playbook like that really helps out. And we plug in new guys here and there every once in a while because we need to, but usually after a while we get it going. And
Triston, I mean, you said start the year at running back and then moving around and using some of your blocking ability. How do you look at that when the coach says, hey, I would like to move you from one position to another? Is it says, hey, whatever I can do, I'm willing to do it?
Absolutely. I definitely know that you got to make some sacrifices and do what's best for the team, and I'm willing to do whatever that takes.
5 wins and 2 losses so far this season. How would you each describe the season so far? It's been, I think, a lot of really good highs, had a couple of tough games, but really battled, especially that Marion Tigerton game. How would you rate the season up to this point with so much still left to play for? I'll start with you, Griffin.
I would say one word that describes the season is like unexpected. A lot of things didn't go the way we planned to, but we just adapt and we change with it. So.
And Triston, what about you? How would you describe this season up to this point?
I'm really proud of how we played. I think losing a few guys, it's been hard, and we played our butts off. We play as hard as we can, and then I don't think we disappoint even with our losses.
One the thing about it is this season, this conference has some really good teams in it. I think it's actually really, it's lifted. I mean, you look at a team like Port that was a tri-champion a year ago in your conference. They've struggled big time. Even Almond has had a couple of stubbed toes as well. When you look at the conference, has it been surprising to see Marion Tigerton up there, Tri-County up there, or was that something you guys were expecting going into the campaign?
We expected Almond to be up there. They got that big back, Emmett Stiles. Marion Tigerton, that is definitely a surprise. Number 0, Braylon Milkey. He's a tough running back to tackle, I'll tell you that.
And Griffin, what about you? Has this been surprising in your conference so far this season?
I'd say a little bit surprising, but you just understanding that it's going to be competitive no matter what. So kind of just, I don't know. I wouldn't say it's that.
Again, we're talking to our student-athlete guest this week, Triston Fisher and Griffin Puent from Newman Catholic High School here on the Big High School Sports Show on 98.9 WXCO. We'll talk more about the game coming up on Friday and football generally, but wanted to ask each of you, what other sports are you involved in at Newman Catholic? Triston first.
I'm just involved in football and track.
What are you involved in track? What do you do?
I'm a big hurdle guy.
And Griffin, what about you? What other sports are you involved in?
I play basketball, and then in track, I usually run sprints and relays.
Multi-sport athletes are the norm at Newman because I think you're hovering around 100 students at the school. So I think the sense is that everybody that's the coaches are going to come after you and say, hey, come on out. But at the same time, there's great opportunities. Would you describe maybe the opportunities that each of you have at Newman Catholic? Is it something that you really are able to put your arms around? Because having a low student population does mean great opportunities. Griffin, what about you?
It's fun to be an athlete year round and kind of just change it up. It keeps things new and keeps things fresh. But you kind of during the summer you got like quite a lot of stuff going on. So.
Do you have a favorite of the 3 sports you're involved in?
I'd say basketball.
Why basketball?
It's always been basketball in my life, and I started from a really young age, and I just loved it ever since.
And Triston, football or track?
Football, 100%.
Why football?
I don't know. I just grown up playing football. Nothing but love for the game. Watching it on TV, playing it at halftime for the Packer games.
Mm-hmm. Well, let's talk about outside of sports. What's your favorite class? Triston, what's your favorite class at Newman?
I think I got to go anatomy.
Why anatomy?
I don't know. I love my teacher.
Who's your teacher? Give a shout out.
Mrs. Gasper. I just love, there's just so much to learn in that class. A lot of homework, but it's worth it.
And Griffin, what about you? Do you have a favorite class?
This year I'd say physics of the human body. Shout out to Mr. Smith, but it's a fun class, and we go to the weight room for a lot of labs, so that's fun.
Do either of you plan on going to college, or do you plan on going into the workforce?
Yeah, I plan on going to college.
Do you hope to continue being athletically involved as well?
I not in that sense, but I kind of want to be a physical therapist, so kind of just going along with that.
Have you decided where you're going yet, or are you still working that out?
I'm still up in the air, but I'm kind of narrowing it down now.
Triston, what about you? Are you hoping to go on to college, or are you looking to get into the real world?
I'm hoping to go to college, but still playing it by ear. I really don't know yet. It's more time, I guess.
For both of you, in terms of as a senior and sounding like that perhaps this will be the last time you have an opportunity to put on the pads, because football is a little different than some other sports. I mean, you see guys going out to Sunnyvale still playing ball sometimes, but with football, it's hard to have those kind of leagues once you leave either high school or the few that get lucky enough to go to college and play football. What are you going to miss about not playing football in this kind of environment with a team, with the pads, with the official feel of a Friday night? Triston, what do you think you're going to miss most about that?
Going out there playing in front of the fans on a Friday night is nothing like it. Gives me chills every time just thinking about it.
Griffin, what about you? What are you going to miss about the Friday nights of being involved in football?
I'd say just the team aspect of the game. You grow really close with the guys over the season, and it's kind of hard to believe that it's almost over. So
Absolutely. When you look at high school athletics, the people that aren't involved in it, what maybe outside the competition, what is the best part of being part of a team in high school? Whether it's football, whether it's basketball, whether it's track and field, is there something that really is sort of outside the lines that is special as well? The camaraderie and the things like that. If you don't have anything, that's okay. It was not a greatly worded question.
I would say just learning how to work together for a common goal. You all do your own part. You all contribute, and just learning how to come together and do that.
Anything to add, Triston? Or
I don't got anything. Sorry.
Nope, that's fine. Who's your favorite team to play? Favorite rival? Because they're different. I guess for you, Griffin, it's different from football and basketball. Because in the basketball season, you're in the Merriwood Conference. Here in football, you're in the CW8. Maybe a favorite football rival, and then maybe a favorite basketball rival.
My favorite football rival. We like playing Almond. I mean, those games are fun, kind of really intense. But and then basketball, I'd say Assumption and Marathon probably. So.
And Triston, do you have a favorite football rival?
I agree with Griff. Definitely Almond is definitely we compete. Yeah.
Just 1 week to go in the regular season. You got Tri-County on the road coming up on Friday night. That's a team that's had a very good season. They're like you, 5-2. They've just lost their first conference game last week against Marion Tigerton. As you've prepared for the game on Friday night, Triston, what has jumped out? Especially, you being on the offensive side, defensively, how do you feel the matchup is for the Newman offense against the Tri-County defense?
We just got Damian back, our best linebacker by far, and we've been flowing to the ball so well this week. The juice is back, the energy is high. I think defensively it's gonna be rough for Tri-County.
And Griffin, what about you? What have you been seeing in terms of preparation for Tri-County? What are the things that perhaps that you're seeing and that you think your team is going to have to do well in order to earn a W?
We've done a lot of scouting. We know what's coming, and I think one of the big things is just finishing off plays, finishing tackles, and remembering our scouting reports. So.
This year is different because it is 32 teams going to the playoffs instead of 16. And right now, Newman is in good shape. It looks like you're going to be playing some postseason football. As you look forward and knowing what is coming back for your team and what you've been able to do and maybe not do this season, what's the biggest area that your team has to be better at in order to make an advancement in the playoffs? Because obviously it's going to be everybody's going to earn their spot in the postseason. What are the things that your team has to do better when you get to the postseason, including this Friday against Tri-County, in order to keep this season going as long as possible?
I definitely just doing the little things right, like finishing tackles, finishing blocks, and just trusting that the play is going to develop, and trusting that coach is going to put us in the right place.
Anything else that stands out, Triston, that your team has to be better at?
No, I think it's just focusing on the little things. Coach will win us that game. We just got to make sure we get the little things right.
You're both younger as the Cardinals were winning state championships. What do you remember about seeing that, and what would you like to your last go around here to try to make some more memories here in the postseason? Do you recall the thoughts when these Newman Cardinals are winning state championships? Anything that stood out to you?
I'd say the biggest thing is just how much fun they had out there playing with each other, and just how they stuck together as a team. And we need to do that going into the postseason.
And Triston, what about you? Do you remember anything about those state tournament championships for Newman Catholic and things that you want to kind of earn for yourself in the next number of weeks?
No, I do not. I actually was not part of Newman.
Oh, you weren't?
But
when did you come to Newman?
I came here, start of sophomore year.
Oh, yeah,
freshman year.
That's right. So
a year short.
Well, let me take it a different direction. What has been maybe the best thing about coming to Newman, being the last 3 years now? What opportunities maybe or anything that else that jumps out that, hey, this really has worked out well for me?
Just opportunities, meeting new friends. I like that. I mean, we got a good group. I feel really close with this group. We got each other's back.
Griffin, and I think a lot of folks who may be watching here may have seen the television story just recently about you and your siblings. I mean, 1 of 4.
Yeah.
I mean, that's amazing, and all part of athletics at Newman. What has that experience been like, especially being able to play with your brothers on the football field, but to have the entire family dynamic involved here for the last number of years at Newman?
Yeah, definitely thinking about it, it's crazy, but I just growing up like this, you think it's normal, but definitely playing with Damien and Everett is the best part of playing football. So
for folks that would never go through growing up in a home with quadruplets, is that the right term? Quadruplets. How did you and your parents and your siblings do it? Anything jump out? But you just said it's probably normal to you, but was it at times difficult when you had 4 at the same time at the same age going through the same things at the same time?
Yeah, I mean, I hear stories about how hard it was when we were little and how taking care of us, like getting us to go to bed on time was pretty crazy, but yeah, I don't know how to think of it anyway else. So
let's get to our final question, because what we do is we always ask, especially the seniors who have been around the block a couple of times, our final question, which is based on your experiences. You know, you've had learning experiences over the last number of years. For somebody that's just starting their journey at Newman, whether it's a freshman or a sophomore, being involved in athletics, what piece of advice would you give that young person based on what you've learned over the last number of years? Triston, you'll go first.
There's a quote from Vince Lombardi. It says, "The man on top of the mountain did not fall there," and you just gotta work for every bit, every snap. You gotta work, go full speed, and not everything just handed to you. You gotta work for it.
Griffin, what about you? Any piece of advice that you'd give a younger student athlete just starting their journey at Newman?
I'd definitely just say work hard, go to the weight room, take that seriously, and then just if you have any setbacks too, like injuries, like just work harder.
Very good indeed. And you've seen that plenty of those injuries around Newman Catholic the last couple of years, but still battling hard and fighting and having a great season a year ago and having a great season so far this year, 5-2. Best of luck against Tri-County on Friday night. Best of luck when you find out what the playoff bracket looks like this coming weekend, and hopefully a nice long run. And best of luck as you both participate in future sports at Newman as well.
Yep. Thank you.
You bet. Again, Triston Fisher and Griffin Puent, our student-athlete guests from Newman Catholic here on the Big High School Sports Show. Again, coming up at 7:06, we will have our coach guest for this week, and flipped it around for the second hour. It will be Wittenberg-Burnhamwood head football coach Jason Rick. That is, again, coming up at 7:06. But we'll take a timeout, come back with more here on the Big High School Sports Show on 98.9 WXCO. On Friday, the Newman Catholic High School football team wraps up the regular season and looks to secure a playoff spot at Tri-County. Hear the game live from the Cloverbelt Credit Union broadcast booth on the Sports 2 stream of WXCO.FM and on the Civic Media app, starting with the pregame show at 6:40 and the opening kickoff at 7 p.m. The game will also air on a tape delay basis following the Wausau West game on 98.9 WXCO. Newman Catholic High School football is brought to you by the Newman Catholic Athletic Booster Club, Sun Printing, Wisconsin Valley Flag Football, Rocket Industrial and the Wausau Business Show, and the Cloverbelt Credit Union. It's Newman Catholic High School football at Tri-County, Friday night, live from the Cloverbelt Credit Union broadcast booth, starting with the pregame show at 6:40 and the opening kickoff at 7 p.m. on the Sports 2 stream of WXCO.FM and the Civic Media app, and on tape delay following the West game on 98.9 WXCO. Thanks to the Wausau West Athletic Department for their continued support of our broadcast of Wausau West Warrior Athletics on Bow Falls Radio 98.9 and 1230. Thanks for listening to our broadcast on the radio, but we want to see you out and about cheering on Wausau West student athletes in action. To find out your next opportunity to see the Warriors, go to WisconsinValleyConference.org and click on Wausau West.
Rocket Industrial's mission to package with less is a commitment to making a future that's better for the next generation. Their recommendations help manufacturers across the nation package with less material, less waste, less time, and with less cost. Their engineers and experts provide data-backed solutions that positively impact your bottom line. When you work with Rocket Industrial, you're working with a partner committed to making a difference. Rocket Industrial, package with less. Learn more at rocketindustrial.com.
Thanks to Wisconsin Valley Flag Football for their support of football broadcasts on Bull Falls Radio 98.9. Wisconsin Valley Flag Football is a league for 3rd through 6th graders in central Wisconsin. Wisconsin Valley Flag Football is a fast-paced 5-on-5 league with small teams so everyone is in on the action. For more information on Wisconsin Valley Flag Football, go to their Facebook page or their website at wivalleyflagfb.com. That's wivalleyflagfb.com.
Looking to turn your dream home into reality? K5 Construction is here to make it happen. From complete home builds to interior remodeling, decks and exterior upgrades, they handle it all. At K5, they focus on quality, excellence, and you. From design to final construction, they're with you every step of the way, on time and on budget. Whether it's your first home or your forever home, they're building your future. Build with confidence. Build with K5 Construction. Visit buildwithk5.com.
And welcome back. It is the Big High School Sports Show on 98.9 WXCO, online at WXCO.FM, mobile devices and Alexa by searching WXCO, and on the Civic Media app. You can also catch us on YouTube. Go to youtube.com and search the 98.9 WXCO channel. We also stream our show here on YouTube as well. I am Chad Holmes, again flying solo tonight in terms of the studio, as my co-host, former Wausau West High School football coach Jason Foster, unable to be with us tonight, but he'll be back coming up next week. Again, coming up later in the show at 7:06, we will be joined by Jason Rick, the head football coach at Wittenberg-Burnhamwood, and then we'll also preview the week number 8 action throughout central Wisconsin as well. Also wanted to give you a little bit of a peek on where some of these teams stand. This year, there is a new playoff matrix in the WIAA. And some folks smarter than I have put it all together in terms of a snapshot. And this is not where it's ultimately going to end. This is just a snapshot of where the teams stand after 7 weeks of play. And it's from Andy Lavoy, ANDYLAVOY.com, AndyLavoy.com. You can go check that out, that website, as he has an unofficial rankings using the matrix. Was able to take what the WIAA has said is the matrix for this year to try and fix maybe a few of the head scratchers when it came to playoff seedings in the last couple of years. But looking at where some of our area teams are standing, starting with 8-player. We just talked about the Newman Cardinals, but according to AndyLavoy.com and the 8-player playoff matrix unofficial rankings, you got Newman Catholic at number 14. And it's 32 teams that will advance to the playoffs. So if this is correct, and if the season was ending today, which it is not, it's not ending until after this week's games, Newman would have a home game. They would be a number 4 seed. And according to the matrix, they would be number 4 seed would take on a number 5 seed. And in this case, in fact, one of the interesting aspects, because it won't stay the same after this week, but going into this week, according to this matrix, it would be Newman Catholic against Tri-County. Well, Newman Catholic plays Tri-County this week. So, according to the matrix, this could be a playoff preview. Again, we don't know how it's all going to end up because the point totals change after the action is completed on Friday. But right now, Newman and Tri-County would be a 4 and a 5. So, obviously, it's a rather even matchup that will be played on Friday night. It's a game that will be broadcast live on the Sports 2 stream of WXCO.FM and the Civic Media app, Newman at Tri-County, starting with the pregame show at 6:40 and the opening kickoff at 7 p.m. Right now, in a player, according to the unofficial playoff matrix rankings, Flambeau is number 1. Oakfield is listed as number 2. Lena St. Thomas Aquinas 4th. Gilman, number 5. Marion Tigerton from the CW8, number 5. So, again, another team from our area, Athens, is currently listed as number 13. Another teams from the CW8 include Alman Bancroft, number 17. Some other teams that are familiar foes to folks around here. Owen Withy, the defending state champs, number 21. So, again, those are some of the looks. And, again, go to andylavoy.com if you want to see the entire listings of these teams. Division 1, we have some area teams, of course, including Wausau West. And right now, Wausau West, number 29 of the 32 teams listed in the unofficial rankings of teams that would be in the playoffs. So Wausau West, if the season were to end today, and as I said earlier, the season is not ending today, got some opportunities to move up or move down, whatever may happen. But Wausau West, if the season ended today, would be a number 8 seed, and according to the Matrix, would be playing Neenah from the Fox Valley Association in the first round of the playoffs. DC Everest from the Wisconsin Valley Conference, number 1 team in the WVC at this point, number 22 according to this Matrix, and they would be a number 6 seed if the season ended today, and they would be going on the road, which they did very well last season, winning 3 road games en route to the state semifinals. And if the season ended today, they say they would go to Bayport. And that is, in fact, that would be a rematch of the state semifinals from a year ago. It was DC Everest falling to Bayport in the state semifinals in Division 1. Stevens Point, despite their 5-2 record, because of that loss to Wausau West, actually behind Wausau West at number 30 in these rankings as well. So, again, that's some of the teams involved in our area from Central Wisconsin in Division 1. We got some teams from our area in Division 2 as well. The Marshfield Tigers from the Wisconsin Valley Conference are in Division 2, and they are number 27 currently in the rankings. So they would be a number 7 seed if the season ended today. And a number of the teams from the Great Northern Conference are involved in Division 3. You have teams that, including Lakeland, which is number 12 ranked in Division 3 according to the Matrix unofficially at this point. Lakeland would be a number 3 seed if the season ended today. Again, it does not. Merrill, right behind at number 13 in those rankings, would be a number 4 seed. You have as well Medford, even with their 2-5 record, right now they're listed 27. They would be listed as a playoff team if the season ended today. And Wausau East just outside at number 34. Rhinelander just outside at number 33. But these teams still have opportunities to improve themselves and move into the top 32 before all is said and done. So again, lots going on in the last couple of weeks as teams try to work their way into the postseason playoffs. Again, if you want to see what these unofficial Matrix rankings are, go to andylavoy.com. And you'll be able to take a look. And it's interesting stuff to look at as we head towards the end of the regular season. Coming up, we have a news update at the top of the hour. And then right after the information update in the news, we will be joined by the head football coach of Wittenberg-Bernewood, Jason Rick, coming up. And that will be coming up here in just a few moments at 7:06. I am Chad Holmes, along with Ian Welsh. We'll be back with hour number 2 of the Big High School Sports Show coming up here on 98.9 WXCO.
WXCO 1230 AM, W255DN Wausau, streaming at bullfallsradio.com.
And welcome back. It is hour number 2 of the Big High School Sports Show on 98.9 WXCO, online at WXCO.FM, mobile devices and Alexa by searching WXCO, and on the Civic Media app. And again, also you can join us on YouTube, youtube.com, and the 98.9 WXCO channel. Also, don't forget that if you missed the program, we are available as a podcast by either going to WXCO.FM and or to civicmedia.us. Go to the show pages there. Or if you're on Spotify or wherever you get your podcasts, just subscribe to the Big High School Sports Show, and you can listen to our previous episodes and this episode as well later on this evening. Again, I am Chad Holmes, flying solo tonight as Coach Jason Foster unable to be with us tonight. He'll be back with us next week, but as we move forward, it's time now for our coach guest for this week, and we're very happy to welcome the head football coach of the Wittenberg-Burnhamwood Chargers, Jason Rick. And Coach, first of all, thanks for coming back on the program.
Yeah, thanks for inviting me.
I got to tell you, this season, as we've been following your team along with the other teams here in central Wisconsin, the one thing that jumps out about your team, it's been a gray hair special kind of year. You've had some very tight games, a couple of overtime games. You had the big comeback win a couple of weeks ago in the fourth quarter against Loyal Greenwood. I guess to start off, it has been quite a roller coaster for your team, hasn't it, this year?
Yeah, it's been a huge roller coaster. Probably not what any of us expected, early on from when the season ended last year. But it's high school sports, and you got to make what it's worth right now.
It really started in the preseason, didn't it, with the loss of your quarterback?
Yeah, that was a big loss. When we had a lot of high hopes for Bryson, going into the year. He was going to be a 4-year starter. Really took the helm last year and really, learned a lot early on last year and really became a really good leader. And, all off season, we looked at him, and then we had to make some changes, and that's where we're at now.
Bryson Schmid we're talking about, and I wanted to ask you about him because one thing about high school athletics, it's so limited. You don't get a chance to redshirt. It's, it goes by so very quickly for these young people. What's it been like, I guess, for the program or for this young man to try to make sure that he's still very much part of it? Because I imagine that's important because you don't get this time back, and that's really sad, I think, for high school athletes who get hurt.
Yeah, no, it extremely is. You nailed it on the head. It is sad. A kid who, I can look back at in my classroom in middle school and think, hey, this kid's going to be something special, and him working his whole athletic career to this year. Everybody looks for their senior year and their football year, and he's got such a good head on his shoulders, though. He really does. He's still part of the team. He shows up in practice when he doesn't have physical therapy. He's actually called a couple of games at our middle school, helped out the 8th grade, and he's called a little bit of offense. And those kids really look up to him. They really enjoyed that. When we've had a split squad in middle school, he's volunteered to go down and help out the 8th grade, and those 8th graders love that because they've watched Bryson for the last 3 years on the varsity field, and but he's got a bright future ahead of him. He's going up to Duluth. They're excited to have him. He's excited to go there, and I'm just really happy that he's got another chance at football after this year.
Let's go into your coach's room, go between the lines. Because number one, you think about the young man, but then you have to think about how you're going to replace a really, really important player.
Absolutely.
What were the discussions like after that, where you had to go back and kind of figure things out?
Yeah, that's where we had to start all over. We thought we'd move. Our quarterback position the last 5-6 years has really been the key part of our offense. Dating back to 3 quarterbacks ago, and going ahead, it's like we dabbed Bryson, and Bryson took all the reps last year, and we kind of put a lot in that pot, and going to it, we threw around some ideas, and we thought we were going to move Caden Yeager there originally, just because he's a tremendous athlete, and he's just a playmaker. And we had a junior step up with Bo, and he looked really good during our scrimmage. And we said, it'll be better if we can spread Caden out, or we can move him in the backfield, and we can just do a little more things with Caden outside instead of just putting him at quarterback. So that's where we ended up going with.
Looking at the season so far, we'll kind of delve into the rest of your team, but you had a nice win to start off with. The Bonduel was always a kind of a thorn in the side of everybody. It's been a long-time rivalry back in the old days when we were conference rivals. And then, of course, had overtime games against Tomahawk and Stratford in weeks 2 and 4.
Yeah.
How would you let's kind of take the first half of the season, because again, you got a new quarterback, you're trying to find your way. I imagine it's very exciting to beat Bonduel and then to lose a couple of heartbreakers like you did against Tomahawk and Stratford. Some adversity early for your guys, wasn't there?
Yeah, I mean, like you said, our conference is strong from top to bottom. I mean, you can't take a week off, and that's why, you're playing through adversity. It was huge. It was a huge win with Bonduel. They were a one game away from state last year, bringing back a lot of key pieces. So that was a good win to get out on top, especially like you said with a new quarterback and trying to find our way. And then on Tomahawk, we knew that they were going to be a good team. That coach up there has done a tremendous job of turning that around, and those kids have bought in, and we knew that they were going to be a juggernaut and a tough, hard-nosed opponent. And we come down to, getting an extra point blocked, or maybe two, I think maybe twice that game. You take away that one play or two extra points, we don't go to overtime and we ended up winning the game. But you're only as good as your last play, and the next play is always the biggest, is what I tell the kids. And learning moving forward, we beat Wega, which was a good, very good athletic team, and so get back on. And then Stratford, we knew what we were going to get with them, and again came down to a blocked extra point early on, and granted they missed one later on too, but just got to capitalize on them. We got to, we could have really easily folded, and Loyal Greenwood came in with one loss, and they were another tough team too. And I think a lot of as soon as you lose your leader, people kind of are get ready to jump on your back, and that's when we're going to get everybody's best, and we got keep going one game at a time now.
Let's talk about the end of the Loyal Greenwood game. You've had the game against Stratford where they scored late to force OT and then win it on a field goal, and then Spencer Columbus is, and again, I think they're one of the underrated teams. They play tough against everybody this year, and they finally turned tough into wins the last couple of weeks, including against your team. And then all of a sudden,
you nailed it on that. I mean, Jason Gorst over there does a tremendous job getting them ready, and they have a really good running back, and give them the ball, and good things are going to happen. And we just, it was the game of, what do they call it, Murphy's Law, where everything could go wrong, went wrong. We kind of had, I think we had 3 interceptions we thrown. We just couldn't get, when we were moving the ball, something would, we'd kill ourselves and, shoot ourselves in the foot with a penalty to move us back. And, we had a rain delay to start. So then you had to keep those kids occupied, and, trying to corral 16, 17, 18-year-old kids in a locker room isn't always the easiest. And, but they played extremely well. And, Loyal Greenwood, we had to grind it out. We had to get a little momentum. We had a couple big stops. They scored on 2 big pass plays, and we found a way to win.
Did it feel like, as you got to the end of that game, that in a sense the season was a bit on the line there?
Oh, 100%. I mean, you look at that, every win's important now with the new playoff format, and we going into that, we knew we had to turn things around, because I think if we would have lost that game, it's just, you lose 2 or 3 in a row there, and it's hard to recover, and then you get the wheels would fall off, and I think it was hopefully we can say it's a turning point in our season, and we can straighten it back out, find a way to make the playoffs, and maybe make some noise in the playoffs.
Let's talk a bit about your team. You mentioned Caden Yeager. He had a big game against Colby last week. I'm looking at the numbers, and it's hard to average 11.7 yards per carry. That's not easy to do. Can you talk a little bit about what he does?
He just works hard. He's got great top end speed. He's agile. You can put him out. You can catch the ball. Early on we weren't giving him the ball enough, and that's why we had to change some roles around and try to move some people around. And we just, even if they stop Caden 10 times, there might be 2 or 3 times that he busts out for a big one, and that's kind of what he's been doing. He always looks to hit the home run, but we got to keep telling them, hey, just one play at a time, and those good things will happen. But you get him out in space, he's hard to catch.
One thing that kind of jumps out as well is that while he does have 782 yards, uh, you have Bo Davis with 407 and Alberto Sanchez with 323. I imagine that kind of balance does help that offense immensely.
Yeah, tremendously. I mean, Bo's getting it. Bo's doing a great job of not trying to be Bryson Schmidt. He's not him as a quarterback and as a player himself. Like, he's got to make his own identity. And I think that's, it's hard to follow a kid like that. But Bo's doing a great job of keeping people honest and getting the yards that they give to him. We know that people are going to key against Caden and try to take away the big play, which is going to open things up for everybody else. And Alberto's been running extremely well, up the middle. He's our toughest kid overall, our strongest kid from the weight room down, and he's worked really hard in the offseason. He's always been a lineman, all his whole career, and we moved him kind of to a fullback, tailback spot, and he's worked hard and he's earned everything that he's got.
Let's talk about the line, because I know that Eddie Nowinski had been somebody that was very good in the run-up. Is he still doing the job up front and generally your line?
Yep, it's nice to lean on those guys a lot because we returned 4 out of our 5 starters, and all those guys have played healthy. They battled some sicknesses, but overall, we really lean on Eddie. I mean, his leadership, and his football IQ. He's a great kid. I'd love to. I'm really hoping to see him play next year in college somewhere. I think you get him in the right program, and they're gonna add size and add strength to him, and he's just a kid that works hard and he knows the game of football. And the line up front, like he's a leader to all the 5 of those guys. We kind of go through him.
Who are some of the other guys up front that have been doing the job? Because they don't get talked about enough.
No, they don't. And that's, you're gonna win every game, up front. I mean, between the trenches, offense, defense. Mason Weersba's our center. He's a kid that just loves football, loves studying, wants to do well all the time. Henry Egging plays the tackle. A 2-year starter, and George Sigmiller too. He's a good wrestler. He actually golfs too. I think he's one of our top golfers in our conference. But they really work well together, and they're multi-sport athletes, and it's nice to have that continuity behind them for those last 2 years.
Looking at the defense, for the most part this year, it looks like you've been very solid.
Our defense has been our backbone of our team this year. It truly has. When our offense has been sputtering, you got to tip our hat to our defense for keeping it in every game. I know the Spencer game, it looks like we lost by 3 touchdowns, but a lot of them came down to our offense, a pick 6 and turning the ball over late, and it just kind of got blown out of proportion. But our defense has really played well. I'd say up until last week where we played Colby, where they might have just gotten complacent. We knew Colby was a struggling team this year, and I think those guys just kind of took a play off, and they learned real fast that you can't take a play off in high school, because no matter who you are, you're going to score. And Colby put up 33 points on us last week, and I think it was a good eye opener going, hey, you have to work hard every single play, every single week, no matter who you play.
Again, we're talking.
But our defense. Yep, go ahead.
I'll just reset things to let people know. We're talking to head coach Jason Rick of the Wittenberg-Burnhamwood Chargers here on the Big High School Sports Show on 98.9 WXCO. And I guess, continuing the defensive talk, you said it. You give up. Wyoega Fremont's a team that often puts up big numbers, 7 points. Stratford, 13 in regulation. Outstanding. Yep. Loyal Greenwood, 16. And that's a great foundation to build on, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely. When you can lean on your defense going, hey, they're going to keep you in the ball game. If you can, get a couple scores and get a lead, you're gonna lean on them. And those guys just play really well together. We got some real good kids, real good athletes in the secondary that we trust to play the one-on-one matchups, and we got some. I'd say our D line is our deepest. We're able to go, only 1 2-way starter on the defensive line, so that gives those guys a lot of fresh opportunities. Where a school our size usually not able to. Usually you're playing both ways. So I think that's really helpful, having 3 out of our 4 defensive linemen playing one way. They're always at 100%. They're just they work hard, and they're fun to watch.
You touched on it a bit earlier about this conference. It is really a good conference when you look at some of the teams that are 2 and 3 in the conference. I don't think anybody would overlook, again, Spencer Columbus. You got a 2 and 3 conference team on Friday against Marathon.
Yep.
Loyal Greenwood's now 2 and 3 in the conference. These are the teams that are below 500, in addition to the Amherst, who's undefeated, and Stratford, who's 5-0 in the conference. This conference is really loaded, isn't it?
It is from top to bottom. It truly is, and that's why you look at these scores, and you can't go off of scores because, you look at we beat Wega. I can't remember the score, but we beat them by
34-7.
Yeah, and then also they have a dogfight game against Amherst last week.
Yep.
But then 2 weeks ago they get blown out by Marathon. It's like, well, it's high school sports. You got to show up. You got to preach to those kids that everything matters. What they do. If they take a playoff, it's just gonna expand, and it's gonna lead into another thing, and it's just anybody's beatable. You got to show up, you got to study it, and they got to practice hard all week.
Well, let's talk a little bit about these last 2 games, because Marathon looks like a much improved team. They had a couple of last-second losses early against Auburndale and against Loyal Greenwood, or else they could be, having an outstanding record this season.
Yep.
They got True Thurs, who's been putting up big numbers. They got some good receivers and everything else.
Yep.
It looks like a really big challenge on the road on Friday.
It's not going to be easy. We know that they got some real good athletes, and the numbers that they've been putting up, and then their offense. It's you got to be able to stop everything. You got to be able to stop the pass, and you got to be able to honor their run. Otherwise, they're going to beat you one of 2 ways. So you got to respect them, and they're going to be a good team. We don't expect a lopsided game on either side of the ball. It's going to be a grind. It's going to be. I hope that our guys show up and they're ready to play, and they've worked hard this week, and I think they know what's at stake, and I think they know how important a win this week is.
I know that you and everybody else is focused completely on Marathon. I want to ask a general question about your Week 9 game against Amherst, who's right now undefeated and could be playing for a conference championship. They got a big game, to say the least, coming up this week. But how do you look at, let's knock on wood here and say, hopefully that you'll be playing some playoff football in level 1. Is having a game like that in Week 9 a good thing to kind of ramp up into the postseason?
Oh, absolutely. You want it to be an important game. You want it to matter. Otherwise, you take a week off and you try to just go through the motions. Well, then you're a week behind, and then who knows what happens that first week of playoffs. So, I think going into that, you want to win every time that you're on the field. And I think you're just going to take away a lot of positive things that, hey, we want to be hitting on all cylinders going into it, and hopefully that we have an extra week after Week 9 that we can continue to build on.
We like to ask our coaches, look beyond here what's happening this season and at the varsity level about the state of the program. And Wittenberg-Burnhamwood has done such a nice job in recent years, really becoming a force in the CWC large and a very good conference, and being able to compete on a week-in and week-out basis with schools like Stratford and Amherst and the rest of these schools in this conference. But as you look further down in your program, how would you grade the state of play within the entire program? Is this something that you feel like you have some seeds in the ground that are going to sprout and keep Wittenberg-Burnhamwood among the top half of the CWC large for the foreseeable future?
Yeah, that's our goal every year. Our goal is obviously, put everything in this year, and then, we want those kids to enjoy it, come back, build off their success, and have those kids, experience success at the JV level, and hopefully that, they can continue to, you get kids to step up and become leaders and a new identity. We're going to lose 16 guys, and it's going to be hard to do that. But it's going to give a lot of kids opportunity to play. And some of the guys now that are already playing that you hope to just step up even more and become better leaders and moving the program forward and continuing to build off the success that we have had.
Are numbers generally good at Wittenberg-Burnhamwood for football?
Yeah. Any small school is going to go through, ups and downs, and as long as you don't have 2 or 3 classes in a row with low numbers. But I think, that winning mindset, and, you're going to get all those athletes out that, normally, maybe they're just basketball guys or basketball. Like, football is a sport that you can just play your junior and senior year, never played before, and have success. And we're starting to see that, we're more and more where guys have never played in the youth program and haven't played early on in their high school, but their buddies are winning on the football team and they want to be part of it, and they end up coming out and actually doing a lot to contribute to the program.
And I wanted to touch on the changes with playoffs and the qualifications and the matrix and everything else that is involved in it. How do you look at that? Do you like it?
Yeah, well, I kind of forgot all about it, to tell you the truth. And then that I think that playoff just came out, like the playoff qualifiers, like their prediction or whatever.
Right.
And, you look back and it's like, okay, that Tomahawk loss now really plays a factor, not just, not winning, and not having a winning record in conference anymore. It's just that would have helped add more points. And I'm not 100% understand the whole thing. I get the logistics of it, but I don't know how you get all your points. And I like it. I think it's a good thing, especially moving your top 4 seeds. When you have especially a conference like us with Amherst and Stratford, like you don't want to necessarily be paired up with all of them in the same regional going into playoffs going, hey, one of these teams is good enough to go to state. We shouldn't have to beat up on each other since we've already beat up on each other during the regular season. So I think it's a good thing to have.
And I guess kind of wrap it up as you head down the stretch with 2 really tough games coming up and then hopefully a playoff run as well. What is the biggest area that your team has to be better at to be successful against Marathon and Amherst and then hopefully in the postseason tournament as well?
Yeah, we just can't beat ourselves. That's just kind of been our early thing on. I think a lot of in the past we've relied on Bryson's experience to kind of get us out of jams, and now we're realizing, hey, we can't have that 3rd and 1 where we have a false start and push us back 5 more yards. Like we need to clean it up, and we can't be shooting ourselves in the foot.
Outstanding. Again, Coach Jason Rick of the Wittenberg-Burnhamwood Chargers, congrats on the success your program has had in recent years. Best of luck as you finish up the regular season, and really appreciate your time here tonight.
Yeah, no, thanks for having me. I enjoy it, so I appreciate that.
Fantastic, and we'll get you back on soon, because when we hear you enjoy it, that means we want you back soon.
Sounds good.
Thanks, Coach.
Yep, thank you.
Then that's Jason Rick, the head football coach of the Wittenberg-Burnhamwood Chargers. Again, that is a tough conference. That is a really tough conference. And Marathon is a good football team. They're on the road against on Friday. And then, of course, Amherst, don't have to say they're a good football team. They prove it, and they prove it every week and every season. But Wittenberg-Burnham has been proving it in recent years as well. Some really good football teams at Whitburn for the last number of years. And they're going to look for another good run in the postseason tournament coming up, hopefully, in the next couple of weeks. We're going to take a timeout. Come back, look ahead. Yep, we're heading to week number 8 of the high school football season. Huge games with conference and playoff implications as well. I am Chad Holmes. It is the Big High School Sports Show on 98.9 WXCO. On Saturday, the Wausau East High School football team plays host to Lakeland in a great Northern Conference matchup. Hear all the exciting action live from the Cloverbelt Credit Union broadcast booth, starting with the pregame show at 11:35 a.m. and the kickoff set for 12 noon on 98.9 WXCO, online at WXCO.FM. Mobile devices and Alexa by searching WXCO and on the Civic Media app. Wausau East football on 98.9 WXCO is brought to you by Compass Properties, Grand Avenue Artifactory, Sun Printing, Wisconsin Valley Flag Football, Lopnose, The Mill Yard, Northland Painting, Callan Street Pub, Rocket Industrial, and the Cloverbelt Credit Union. It's Wausau East hosting Lakeland in high school football Saturday, live from the Cloverbelt Credit Union broadcast booth, starting with the pregame show at 11:35 a.m., kickoff at noon on 98.9 WXCO, WXCO.FM. Mobile devices by searching WXCO and on the Civic Media app.
What's your idea of fall fun? Maybe it's hitting the trails on a new ATV. Then it's time to call CCU. That's Clover Belt Credit Union. Or if you're thinking of a UTV for hauling wood or hunting, or maybe just because it would make the tasks around your property so much easier, it's time to call CCU. ATVs, UTVs, utility tractors, and their attachments for care of your property. Whether you need it for fun or to get the job done, Clover Belt Credit Union is here to help with the great rate financing you want. What are you waiting for? Life's too short and winter's too long. Thinking about a motorhome or maybe a snowplow for your ATV or utility tractor? Call CCU for great rate financing. And if you're thinking motorcycle, Clover Belt Credit Union has the financing you need for the bike you want. Call or apply online at ccuwausau.com. Check it out. For vehicle loans, for mortgages, for financing fall fun, call Clover Belt Credit Union. That's CCU. Local lenders lending local money, keeping our community strong.
For more than 60 years, Sun Printing has been Central Wisconsin's printer of choice due to their commitment to quality, creative solutions, and dedicated service. Sun Printing's team offers you a wide spectrum of services. Whether you need vehicle graphics, offset, digital, large format, graphic designer mailing, they print everything under the sun. No project is too big or too small. So give Sun Printing a call at 845-4911 or visit them online at sunprinting.com.
Thanks to the Wausau West Warrior Gridiron Club for their support of this broadcast of Warrior football on 98.9 WXCO. The Wausau West Warrior Gridiron Club supports the Wausau West football student athletes in their activities and supports the Warriors from the opening kickoff to the final gun. Find out more about the Wausau West Warrior Gridiron Club and Wausau West football at their website, wausauwestfootball.com. Again, thanks to the Wausau West Gridiron Club for their support of this broadcast on 98.9 WXCO. And welcome back. It is the Big High School Sports Show on 98.9 WXCO. Online at WXCO.FM, mobile devices, and Alexa by searching WXCO and on the Civic Media app. Also at YouTube.com and the 98.9 WXCO channel. Chad Holmes with Ian Welsh. And Ian, I'm going to say it to you because I normally say it to Jason Foster.
Okay.
The best part of the show is when we have the interviews. I think it's
absolutely.
always great to hear from coaches and student athletes, find out a little bit more about what makes them tick, learn a little bit more from inside the lines, because as much as I think I may know, I don't know. And I'm not in the locker room when things are at the tightest in terms of situations, or out on the field when things are going either sideways or not as well as you'd like. But to hear the thoughts of Jason Rick, the Wittenberg-Burnhamwood coach, and hear about how when you lose your starting quarterback before the first game of the season, how it kind of blows everything up, because this was a young man that Bryson Schmidt, who had been so good, who was expected to be one of the best players in the area, and to lose him with a season-ending injury before the season starts, and how do you put it all back together, and being in such a tough conference, and I love hearing about that, and hearing from the two young men from Newman Catholic and their football program, and how the last 2 years that program has been just fighting injury after injury. A team with 20 or fewer players on it, and a lot of these injuries are two-way players, and still to battle and still to have a 5-2 record going into their game against Tri-County on Friday night. I just love hearing the thoughts of these folks who are so close to the action, and that's what, again, I think the best part of the show.
Absolutely. I think a lot of the stories they talk about, to hear it actually told from their perspective is, very powerful, and it really says a lot about, how they play as a team, how they work together. And even when when bad things happen, they're still able to find a way to, work through it and try to learn from those mistakes and do better next time. And that's one of the important aspects of high school sports. It's not always about winning or losing, although winning is nice.
It is nice.
But it's also about the game itself, playing as a team, and just the support that comes out from all the people who come to watch these games, to cheer on their families and friends, and just the whole community of high school sports is a very powerful thing.
You're exactly right. And somebody I was surprised would be listening. Now, I'm not surprised because he had two of his players on. But Paul McLigley, a Newman Catholic coach, to send me a message that I was talking about the preliminary seedings and the playoff matrix. Well, the WIAA now has the official preliminary qualifying report out.
Okay.
And you can go to WIAAWI.org, go to Score Center, football database, and preliminary qualifying report. I see a lot of the numbers are similar to what we were talking about with the unofficial, but these are the official numbers. So again, go to the WIAA site and you can see some of the official numbers on where teams stand currently when it comes to the final couple of weeks before the start of the playoffs. And let's get to the field and talk about some of the action going on this weekend in high school football. Again, the pressure starting to ramp up to be still pretty nice weather-wise, it looks like, on Friday night. But we're eventually going to get some real football weather, I think. Be better than last week. It was really hot last week. So better football weather coming up on Friday. Wisconsin Valley Conference showdown in Stevens Point on Friday. The DC Everest Evergreens, the Stevens Point Panthers. Last season, they played a thriller at Steam Stadium where Everest was able to win it en route to a conference championship. Stevens Point coming off a night where they put up nearly 700 yards of total offense against Eau Claire North last week, snapping a 2-game losing streak. I was exceptionally impressed with quarterback Trent Breitbach 2 weeks ago when he faced off against Wausau West. He is a kid that can throw it and he can run it, and he's very hard to bring down when he does run it. He had just an outstanding night last week, 375 yards passing, 3 touchdowns, over 100 yards rushing. Just a kid that puts up huge numbers. For DC Everest, they're going to have to find a way to slow him down. It's not going to be an easy one for the Evergreens. So Stevens Point needs a win. A win would put them in a first-place tie in the WVC with DC Everest. So, again, a good one coming up on Friday at Gerke Field. Meantime, we will be at Tom Field on Friday night. The Wausau West football team taking on Eau Claire Memorial. Eau Claire Memorial in Wausau West. And the Warriors trying to bounce back from a difficult Friday in Marshfield last week. They had a 2-game winning streak. Things were going really well for the Warriors. And then Marshfield defeated the Warriors 40-22. Eau Claire Memorial, hey, they got their first conference win. And this is an Eau Claire Memorial team that has been much improved from a year ago. They were a team that, watching them last year, they did not want to tackle. They did not look like they wanted to play football. This year, from the very first game, I remember watching the first game when they played Hudson, a very good team. It was a different Eau Claire Memorial team. It's a team that's been much more competitive this year. They came inches away from beating their crosstown rival, Eau Claire North, a few weeks back. And then last week, they did defeat Wisconsin Rapids 29-20. Aaron Gunlock is a quarterback that likes to throw it around a bit. He had 202 yards and 3 touchdowns. And they also showed a bit of a run game. They had a pair of 100-yard rushers against Eau Claire North. Wausau West has had a little difficulty, I think, slowing down the run recently. That's one area the Warriors have to be better at. I do think Wausau West should be able to move the football both on the ground and through the air on Friday night. But it is a huge game for the Warriors. They come in 4-3 overall. 3-2 in the conference. They have a non-conference crossover in Week 9 at River Falls. That is a very good River Falls team. It's non-conference, but it does count in terms of playoff qualification. Every team in the Valley has one game with a Big Rivers team that is considered a conference crossover, where the game does not count in the conference standings, but it does count in terms of qualifying for the playoffs. So, again, for Wausau West, you want to get that 4th conference win this week, then not have to go over to River Falls to get a 4th conference win next week. Wausau West and Eau Claire Memorial, you can hear the game live right here on 98.9 WXCO, online at WXCO.FM, mobile devices and Alexa by searching WXCO, and on the Civic Media app, starting with the pregame show at 6:35 and the opening kickoff at 7 o'clock. Also in the Valley, Marshfield, they conceivably could be in a first-place tie in the conference at the end of play on Friday. Marshfield is at Eau Claire North. Tigers are just 3-4 overall, but they are 3-1 in the WVC. So a golden opportunity for Marshfield. If they win and Stevens Point wins against DC Everest, all of those teams would be 4-1 in the conference. Eau Claire North, they are a team that has one win in the conference. They're 1-3. They're 2-5 overall. They did win their conference crossover. So in terms of playoff qualification, Eau Claire North is 2-3 in the conference. So they look at this as an opportunity to get a third conference win in terms of ultimately getting to the postseason. So a vital game as well for the Huskies of Eau Claire North. The game will be played at Eau Claire North High School on Friday. And if there is a team that has got the short end of the stick when it's come to their non-conference games this year, it's Wisconsin Rapids. The Wisconsin Rapids Lincoln Red Raiders still looking for that first win of the campaign. They've had non-conference games so far this year with the Big Rivers, some of the best teams in the Big Rivers Conference, like Rice Lake. They also had an early season game. I'm trying to remember who they had the first game with, but it was, again, a very tough game. They have New Richmond coming up on Friday night. New Richmond is an outstanding football team as well. So New Richmond at Wisconsin Rapids, boy, again, it's going to take time for Mike Krenz to build that program, but he is a guy that knows what he's doing. It's a team that, I think, a program that will get better. They've gotten better as the season's gone on. They've played much more competitive football games the last 3 weeks. They lost 14-12 against Wausau West 3 weeks ago. They had a 13-0 lead before falling 24-13 against Marshfield 2 weeks ago, and then 29-20 at Eau Claire Memorial last week. So again, it's a team, Wisconsin Rapids Lincoln, that has played better football recently, but still looking for that first win of the campaign. Great Northern Conference, boy, what a race we have in the GNC. 3 teams are tied atop the conference standings. We got Merrill, we have Mosinee, and we have Tomahawk. They're all 4-1 in the conference, and 2 of those teams will meet in a showdown Friday night. Merrill at Tomahawk. Tomahawk, what a year for Coach Dewey Riley and his team. Dewey Riley, and I hope you heard our interview with him a few weeks back here on this program. He led Tomahawk to a state hockey championship last year. Now he's turned around the football program as well. And when he's done with football, he'll be back on the ice with Tomahawk to start their season. So what Dewey Riley has done has been incredibly impressive at Tomahawk. They are 6-1 overall, 4-1 in the conference. Merrill carries a 4-game winning streak. They are 5-2 overall, 4-1 in the conference. The only loss Merrill had this year was a close one on the road, 21-14 against Mosinee. Boy, I mean, this one, flip a coin. I really don't know. I think this Merrill team is playing great football. This Tomahawk team is finding ways to win, and that was a very impressive bounce back last week for Tomahawk. They lost their first game of the year by 7 to Mosinee 2 weeks ago, but they went on the road, beat an always good Medford program 24-14. So again, really, really good stuff. Merrill at Tomahawk on Friday night. Mosinee will look to keep their share of first place in the conference. They travel to Antigo. It's been a struggle for the Antigo Red Robins so far this year. Still looking for that first conference win. They're 0-5. They're 1-6 overall. Mosinee looks like they're playing their best football of the season. The last 3 games, a win over Wausau East, a win over previously undefeated Tomahawk, and then a really good, impressive win, a big win over Rhinelander last week, 41-14. And for Antigo or anybody else facing Mosinee, have to try and slow down Triefstoffel, both running the ball, passing the ball, on defense. He does it all for the Mosinee squad. So Mosinee at Antigo. Medford is at Rhinelander. This is a huge game for both these teams. They're both 2-3 in the conference. The winner moves to 3-3 in the conference. That could be enough to get them in the postseason playoffs. The loser goes to 2-4. Then they will have to win their final game and then hope that 3-4 in the conference is good enough to make the postseason. So Medford at Rhinelander, massive game for both these teams if they hope to be playing in a couple of weeks in Level 1. And coming up on Saturday, another game that we will have for you right here on 98.9 WXCO, online at WXCO.FM, mobile devices, and Alexa by searching WXCO. And on the Civic Media app, the Wausau East Lumberjacks play host to the Lakeland Thunderbirds, another significant game in the Great Northern. Lakeland, to start things off, they are 1 game out of first place. Lakeland is 3-2 in the conference, 5-2 overall. They snapped a 2-game losing streak last week, 21-7 over Antigo. They still have hopes of a conference championship. Lakeland will be in the postseason in all likelihood. They need one more win officially to get into the postseason. And then Wausau East. The Lumberjacks are 2-5 overall. They're 1-4 in the conference, but as I said earlier, 3-4 in the conference can still get you in. In fact, most teams 3-4 in 11-player football will get in the postseason. Wausau East can still do it. They need to win their final 2 games. They're both at Tom Field. This week, Saturday, against Lakeland, and then in week 9 at home against Antigo. And, of course, Antigo has struggled. They have not won in conference, so you have to feel pretty good if you're Wausau East in week 9. But the hurdle they have to clear Saturday will be the big one against Lakeland. So if they can beat Lakeland Saturday, puts them still in a position perhaps to get into the postseason playoffs in Division III. So that is the Great Northern Conference. CWC Large. We just talked plenty about CWC Large with Jason Rick, the head football coach at Wittenberg-Burnhamwood, just a few minutes ago. This is a terrific conference, and we got the top 2 teams getting together on Friday night. One of the games, I'm sure if you watch the TV stations, they have their games of the week. I would think that they would be at this one, Amherst hosting Stratford. For the conference championship in all likelihood, Stratford, they started their season off with non-conference losses to Mosinee and to Edgar, but since then they have won 5 in a row in conference. Their closest shave came against Wittenberg-Burnhamwood in week number 4 of the campaign. Wittenberg-Burnhamwood had a lead into the final seconds. Stratford scored late to force overtime and then won it on a long field goal, 16-13. Since then, Stratford has been playing some dominant football. They look to be really rolling into form heading into this one against Amherst. Amherst, meantime, they started their off with 5 consecutive blowout wins. They were dominant in their first 5 games. Then the last 2 weeks, 35-22 against Spencer Columbus at home in Amherst 2 weeks ago. As Spencer Columbus, again, a team that's played the very good teams, very, very tough this year. And then last week, Amherst had to struggle and ultimately get a late interception to hold on for a 27-21 win at Wyowega Fremont. So, again, in terms of form, it does look like maybe Stratford is rolling into form a little bit better than Amherst. But Amherst does have the home field advantage, and it should be a packed house at that beautiful facility in Amherst as Stratford takes on Amherst on Friday. Another game that I think has the potential of being one of the more entertaining games this week in high school football is Wittenberg-Burnhamwood at Marathon. We spoke about Wittenberg-Burnhamwood plenty. They are now 4-3 overall, 3-2 in the conference. Marathon, they had a 2-game winning streak snapped in their loss at Stratford last week. Marathon 3-4. 2-3 in the conference, so Marathon still very much in the playoff race. The 2 weeks before last week, Marathon's offense had been humming. Truther's the quarterback, and especially Garrett Bracewell, their wide receiver. Bracewell had more than 200 yards receiving 2 weeks ago when Marathon put up 50 points in their game against Wyowega Fremont. For Wittenberg-Burnhamwood, they're going to have to try to slow down as much as possible Truthers and make sure perhaps have double team often against Garrett Bracewell, a very big play receiver for the Marathon Red Raiders. That game being played in Marathon Friday night. Massive game for Wittenberg-Burnhamwood. You don't want to lose that game if you're Wittenberg-Burnhamwood, because if they do, they would be 4-4 overall, 3-3 in the conference, heading into a Week 9 game at home against right now undefeated Amherst. So, again, no easy games in the CWC Large. And for Marathon, they have 2 tough games. They got to find at least 1 win and maybe 2, but I think 1 win should get them in. Marathon against either Whitburn, or then they wrap up their season against Spencer Columbus. But the good news for Marathon is that both those games will be played in Marathon. But, again, that doesn't give you any points. You still have to go out there and earn it. Colby is at Spencer Columbus, and all of a sudden, after that big win for Spencer Columbus last week at Loyal Greenwood, they have moved themselves into playoff position. Spencer Columbus 3-4 overall, 2-3 in the conference. And again, they have played tough football all season long. Even the games they lost. They went to Stratford early this season, was tied at halftime. They played really well and tough at Amherst 2 weeks ago. And then they went to Loyal Greenwood last week and earned a big road win to put themselves back in the mix for a playoff berth. Colby, again, they've struggled. That's usually a very solid program, but they have struggled, still looking for that first conference win. But last week they did put 33 points on the board in their game against Wittenberg-Burnhamwood. And Luke Hanula had 179 yards rushing. So, again, that's somebody that Spencer Columbus will have to keep an eye on. And then finally, Loyal Greenwood at Wyowega Fremont. Wyowega Fremont gave Amherst everything they could want and more last week before falling 27-21. For Wyowega Fremont, they need to find a couple of wins to wrap up their season to put themselves at 3-4 in the conference and put themselves in position to perhaps get a playoff berth. And Loyal Greenwood, after starting the season off at 4-0, 2-0 in the conference, they've lost 3 games in a row. Tough games. Amherst, they lost to. They lost to Stratford as well. And then not Stratford. They lost to Wittenberg-Burnhamwood 2 weeks ago, 1916. And then they lost last week to Spencer Columbus. But the problem is for Loyal Greenwood, if they don't win this week, then they have to go to Stratford, actually, to wrap up the season. And you don't want to have that game be the ultimate game to get you in the playoffs, because if they don't win this week against Wyowega Fremont on the road, they would be 2-4 in the conference, and then they would have to go to Stratford next week, and in all likelihood have to win that game in order to make the playoffs. So after a great start for Loyal Greenwood, all of a sudden things have gotten much more hairy with 2 road games to finish up their season. Then you have the Merriwood CWC, a Thursday night game, Edgar at Pacelli. And Edgar, undefeated, heading towards, perhaps a run. They are in Division 6 this year, however. They did move up a division, make it more difficult when the postseason gets underway, but they appear to be on their way to another conference championship. Pacelli Cardinals 2-3 in the conference. They got to find a way to earn another win to perhaps earn themselves a spot in the postseason. It will not be easy at Gerke Field on Thursday against a very tough Edgar team. Then you have Assumption at Auburndale. Assumption in their final year in 11-player football. They're going to the 8-man route next year, and they need another win to perhaps earn themselves a spot in the playoffs. It will not be easy at Auburndale. Boy, Auburndale had one of the more impressive wins last week when they defeated previously undefeated in conference Abbotsford 42-0. So Auburndale, their only blemish this year, a loss against Edgar, 6-1 overall, 4-1 in the conference. Nathan Van Wy has had a huge season for Auburndale. He had 224 yards rushing last week on just 11 carries. I mean, that young man has been doing fantastic work all season long. And if Assumption has any hopes of trying to get a W against Abbotsford, I should say against Auburndale, they're going to have to slow down Nathan Van Wy. So, again, that is going to be a tough one for the Assumption Royals as they try to find that third conference win to perhaps get themselves in the postseason playoffs. Also in the Merriwood CWC, you have Iola Scandinavia at Pittsville. Pittsville, the last couple of weeks, have started to show signs of life. They had a real rough start. 2 weeks ago, they put up 42 points in a 50-42 loss against the Abbotsford Falcons. And then we had last week, they were able to win, knocking off the Pittsville. Actually, they won last week, Pittsville, by a score of 30-6 against Assumption. Dawson Luther has been terrific for the Panthers. 2 weeks ago in that game against Abbotsford, he had one of the monster games of the season. He ran for 389 yards and 5 touchdowns in that game. And so, again, Dawson Luther is definitely someone to keep an eye on for the Pittsville Panthers in that game against Iola Scandinavia. Pittsville wins that game. That would be their third conference win, and they would be perhaps in line to earn themselves a playoff berth. Abbotsford will not be playing this week. This is the week they were supposed to play Roscoe in conference. They initially had a makeup game against Kenosha St. Joseph, one of the top-ranked teams in the state, but that game has been canceled as well. And then as we look at 8-player football, the Newman Cardinals and Tri-County, game being played down in Plainfield. A big one for both teams as they play their final game. Again, for 8-player football, this is the final game of the regular season. And a home playoff game could be on the line for both these teams on Friday. They're both right now, as you look at the WIAA 8-player preliminary field. Right now, if the season ended, they have Newman Catholic as number 14 of the 32 teams making the postseason. That means Newman would get a home playoff game. Tri-County, number 18 among the 32 that would make the playoffs. And they would be on the road. But if Tri-County beats Newman, obviously that would affect the way that the playoff field is ultimately divvied out at the end of play this weekend. So Newman Catholic at Tri-County, an early game with significance for the playoffs. And Newman Catholic at Tri-County will be heard on the Sports 2 stream of WXCO.FM and the Civic Media app, starting with the pregame show Friday night at 6:40 and the opening kickoff at 7 o'clock. That game will also be airing on a tape delay basis following the Wausau West game here on 98.9 WXCO. Marion Tigerton will look to complete a conference championship. They travel to Wild Rose, and also Alman Bancroft is at Wabeno Leona in the CW8, involving teams in the CW8, I should say, because Alman Bancroft is getting a makeup game for a forfeit. Two of the teams, in fact, to wrap up the season, not playing in that conference, and that's never a good sign. And then finally, Northwoods East 8, Athens, a team that is 13th in the 8-player projections going into the final week of the season, and they would love to get a W, and in all likelihood have a home game next week in the playoffs. They will host Rib Lake. You got Phillips at Hurley and Prentice at Flambeau as well, involving teams in the East 8. And Prentice is a team that has a tough one against Flambeau, because Flambeau is the number 1 team listed in the preliminary qualifying report at WIAAWI.org. So again, you can get all the 7 divisions, 11-player, the 8-player preliminary qualifying report. See where your favorite team is lined up right now in terms of potential playoff seeding at WIAAWI.org. Go to Score Center, Football Database, and Preliminary Qualifying Reports. Just to recap the 3 games that we will have for you this weekend here with WXCO. Friday night, a pair of games. Wausau West hosting Eau Claire Memorial. Homecoming for the Warriors, 6:35 for the pregame, 7 o'clock for the opening kickoff, live on 98.9 WXCO, online at WXCO.FM, mobile devices and Alexa by searching WXCO, and on the Civic Media app. Friday night, Newman Catholic at Tri-County. Massive game in 8-player. 6:40 for the pregame, 7 o'clock for the opening kickoff. Live on the Sports 2 stream of WXCO.FM and the Civic Media app, and on tape delay following the West game on 98.9 WXCO. And playoff hopes must win for Wausau East Saturday. Lumberjacks need a win Saturday, need a win next Friday in order to have any chance for a postseason berth. Saturday, Wausau East hosting Lakeland. 12 noon kickoff, 11:35 a.m. for the pregame on 98.9 WXCO, WXCO.FM, mobile devices, and Alexa by searching WXCO, and on the Civic Media app. Ian, thank you.
You're welcome, Jen. And it's always interesting when you're flying a solo. So it's not a bad thing.
It's
just,
more.
it's a lot of talking.
It's more interesting when Jason Foster is here, and he'll be back with us next week. We'll have a coach guest. We'll have a student athlete guest. We will have brackets for the 8-player football playoffs. We will be heading into the final week of the 11-player regular season, so a lot on the plate next week, 6 till 8 p.m. Big high school sports show here on 98.9 WXCO. So again, thanks for joining us. We'll catch you next week, and also tune in for our 3 games coming up on Friday and Saturday here on 98.9 WXCO.
WXCO 1230 AM, W255DN Wausau, streaming at bullfallsradio.com.